Yeah, it's funny. Last few clients have had similar similar stuff. It's a holiday. Everybody's so excited for the holidays, I think.
Yeah, this whole week has kind of seemed like Friday because my kids are getting out of school and
Right, right.
finally Friday.
Yeah, that's nice. The real Friday. Yeah, it's an interesting time of year where
Yeah.
everything gets escalated. Yeah, so how are you doing? It's funny. It's only been a week, but it feels like it's been like a couple weeks since we talked for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. No, it's doing good. I actually had a meeting yesterday with a friend of mine. I
Hmm.
haven't known him for very long. Good guy. He's an actor,
Hmm.
an aspiring actor, and he's up and
Right.
driving up to LA 5 times a week doing stuff.
Well,
And he's kind of getting burned out a little bit.
hmm.
I don't know if I'd say burned out. He's trying to look for something a little more stable, sort
Yeah.
of. And so he's starting his own production company.
Oh, cool.
Um, right now, he has people lined up and stuff. And
Hmm.
so I heard about that, and I thought, I don't know anything about production or whatever, but I
Right.
wanted to talk to him because I'm creative and I live in the marketing world. And so I wanted to see
Sure.
maybe there was something there or whatever. So we talked for about 3 hours yesterday, and
Wow. Nice.
yeah, there could be something there. Like he's open to the possibility of some kind of partnership to help get this
Hmm.
going somewhere. And I honestly have no idea what this would even look like or if
Right.
it has any legs or anything, but it was something new that
Yeah.
has.
Did it get you excited and feel in resonance, or how did it feel to talk about it?
It did. And part of me was thinking, well, I'm not an actor. I don't
Mm.
know anything about production and with what he's doing, but there's a lot of other stuff that would go into something like that
Hmm.
that I could provide value towards.
Sure. Sure.
I think he was seeing that, and so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that was, if anything, it was something new that did kind of get me excited, and
Yeah. Yeah. Something to pour some passion into. Something to light the fire a little bit.
right,
Yeah. And it's also, having a couple different irons in the fire. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily need to be a full-time gig, but if
yeah,
it's helping you kind of diversify where you're putting some energy into the school, putting some energy in to this new possibility, and then playing with other possibilities too of stuff you're generating yourself. But
right.
it really does that. How have you done in the past when you've had the kind of multiple fires going? Has that been something that's really been beneficial to you to have something you're excited about here, something you're excited about there? Um,
Yeah, no, I have a hard time focusing on just one thing.
yeah, yeah.
Now I don't know if that's because like I literally just have a hard time with that, or if it's the fact that sometimes I don't have confidence that one thing is going to actually do something.
Right, right.
So I feel like I need to have,
Hmm.
my hands in other things. Maybe
I mean,
it's a
I think
little
it's a combination too. Is fair to say, that
right.
there's and a lot of it we go by feeling like it feels better to do this, and so there's the piece of like I love to have my brain engaged, like that feels really exciting. There's a trust factor, which just is a thing, and then there's and I see it's so amazing. Even there's a lot of my clients that are just really killing it with whatever they're doing, and the moment they back off it a little bit and try to let themselves just kind of go into like autopilot or aren't like their brain's not engaged, like they go into suffering almost instantly. And it's really interesting. Some of these guys that are even in the self-development market that are just like killing it. The moment they back off that edge of that growth, they go into suffering. And
Mhm.
they're like, I don't know what's going on. Like I was killing it. And all of a sudden I just feel like shit. I don't want to get off the couch. I'm like, yeah, like as soon as you disengage from what lights your fire is not lit, you know?
Right,
And it's just like, it's like the same thing. Like if you're the magician and you don't show up, there's no magic.
right. No, that's true. So that happened, and then I finally met with the new marketing director at the school,
Oh, okay, nice, nice. How'd that
which,
go?
which they didn't even want me around her at first, like
Yeah, yeah.
2 months almost. And finally, she's been wanting to meet with me for a variety
Mhm.
of reasons, partly because she doesn't know what I've been working on really, and
Right.
just a bunch of things. And so we met on Tuesday, I think,
Hmm.
and talked for a couple hours. And I showed her the stuff I'm working on. She really liked it, which was good.
Nice.
And I told her because she really didn't know what was going on. They've totally
Hmm.
kept her in the dark, not just about me, but about quite a few things in the
Hmm.
marketing department.
Yeah.
I think they didn't want to scare her off or something.
Hmm.
And
We'll
so
slowly ease into what she's gotten herself into. Huh?
exactly. And I gave her a history lesson of the department and the
Hmm.
school, and I think she found that very enlightening. And it also put a lot of things into perspective and focus for her. Like, oh, that's why they're saying or doing this.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, now it makes sense. Like, I think it was a good thing for her.
yeah. Do you think it's what they were afraid you would be sharing with her?
Probably a little
Yeah.
bit. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't do it in a. If I would have met with her the week she came on board,
Yeah.
told her all of this with the way I was feeling,
Yeah. Yeah.
it would have come across. It wouldn't have come across the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was more like there's been 2 months of separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was really upset for a while.
Yeah. And so how does that reflection feel when you felt so pushed out? Like, does it feel like, well, maybe it was actually a good thing for everybody? Or now that you're on the backside of it coming back together a little bit?
Yeah, I think overall it was a good thing. How it was done,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think was very good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I think it needed to happen in
Hmm.
some way. Like I think I
Sure.
needed that push
Hmm.
to get out of there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm feeling better about that.
Good. Good.
And then the other thing is that I was telling you a few weeks ago about that jump proof thing that I was talking about. That
Oh
little.
yeah. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
So I put a kind of a document together that
Hmm.
outlines how this would work and possibilities and stuff like that. So I floated that to my uncle,
Hmm.
and a couple friends of mine that are very into the volleyball world at least.
Sure.
Just I'm trying to get a feel for
Hmm.
people that are in that world.
Yeah, especially if they're connected with people who are known. If you have a endorsement or like a spokesperson for it, like
Right.
that could really change the whole. Like all of a sudden it has people's attention.
Hmm. So I haven't heard back yet. Although my uncle he texted me last night and he goes, I think he said my wheels are turning right now or something. So
That's awesome.
he's at
Yeah,
least thinking about it.
yeah,
So that I don't know. I mean, it's just another thing that I'm throwing out there to see if it has some possibility.
yeah. And so, how's that feeling? Kind of putting yourself out there and feeling how people are responding to the idea of you bring your energy, whether it's your actor friend or your uncle, or because it feels like there's something solid and grounded in you showing up in this that really like there's a new confidence. And I know that you've just taken a big hit when we first started working together, but there's something that feels really grounded and solid and confident
Hmm.
as you talk about each of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to. Yeah. I guess there is a confidence there.
Yeah.
I kind of need there to be a confidence of some kind. Otherwise, nothing's ever going to happen. Uh,
Yeah.
I've been having all kinds of feelings of. I mean, even yesterday, I when I was going to meet with my friend,
Hmm.
I didn't want to. Part of me
Hmm.
was going,
Yep.
don't meet them, don't meet with them, don't meet with them, and I was
Yeah.
feeling terrible. And like we talked about before, it's like that self sabotage, like pre possibly something good happening. Your body's like,
Yep.
don't do it.
Yeah.
But I did it, and it felt
Hmm.
good. We had a great conversation, and I didn't want to send the proposal thing to my uncle and my
Hmm.
the other guy. No, and uh, again, I feel like every time there's some possibility of
Hmm.
some growth,
Yep.
my body and mind just start clamping up like
Mm-hmm.
point where I almost feel like I'm getting sick or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, feel your throat.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it. I don't
It's
know.
it no doubt is. Yeah. It's what our body does when we try to find resistance. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And you're persevering.
Mhm. And it always feels good to kind of break through something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I've also found, this is kind of a tangent a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing with, this is the first time in a year that I've had a sore throat like this,
Mm-hmm.
which for me, and I don't know if I told you this before, but I used to get sick all the time
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
uh, through my
What an
years.
empathic thing to do.
Is that a normal thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Like we create congestion, we create resistance, we take on our surroundings. It's very much so. Like I used to get sick all the time, particularly whenever there was something that was being asked of me that I was uncomfortable, and it
Yeah.
was very time for me to step forward. Like, what are you gonna do? I'm sick, or I would persevere and do it anyways. Find that resistance for me to focus on, so I could be in that struggle and also have that out if things didn't go well. And it gave me the underdog feeling coming into it, which helped me feel like it was okay. Like it was an easy out if it didn't work out well. Um,
Interesting. So maybe I wasn't even thinking about that. I mean, maybe that's why I got sick all the time, because that actually.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Like it's what I did. Like I've seen it so much in clients. Like it's, and when we're in it, we're fucking sick. Like you don't fake sick. Like I woke up, I'm sick.
Right.
It's.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's crazy. Yeah, that's probably what I did. And it was all the time. I mean, I would get sick, like sick,
mm-hmm.
3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Same.
mean, it's crazy. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what I started doing this past year, now, given what you just said, now I'm thinking, maybe this isn't what was actually helping. But over the past year,
Mm-hmm.
I started kind of going back to the self-sabotage thing,
Mm-hmm.
where the body is like firing bullets at you to just
Yeah.
tear you down, kind of a thing. If I started feeling like anything might be coming on, some kind of a
Mm-hmm.
cold or something,
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of sit back and I would imagine, um, I don't know, the cold viruses coming
Mm-hmm.
at me. I try to
Yeah.
visualize it somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and I would notice them. This is the Guy and Elon thing they would always
Mm-hmm.
tell me, not about being sick, but just about thoughts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just pay attention, give
Yeah.
attention to that part of your body
Mm-hmm.
or mind, whatever the
Yeah.
thoughts that need attention. So I started doing that towards sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Feel
Yeah.
a sickness coming on, and I would look at it almost like a self-sabotaging thing. And so I
Yep.
would look at, oh, look at that cold virus right there. I'll give you attention for a second, and then you'll
Mm-hmm.
go away because you got your attention. And so I've done that every single time this year that I've been
Mm-hmm.
felt like anything was coming on,
Yeah.
and I haven't been sick once.
That's awesome.
So
Empowered in it.
I don't know what that is exactly. I don't know if it's I just have
It's
less
energetic.
general or
We're often either open to it or we're not open to it. It's really like I can feel that. Like if I feel something starting to come into my field, I just shift my thinking and open my receptors to being healthy and close off the receptors to being sick. And it's like I don't answer that door, and
Mhm.
it literally just shifts. And like yesterday, like I had um a a class I was teaching last night that I was feeling a little bit anxious about, and I could feel my throat start to get tingly and stuff. And I'm like, nope, I'm focusing on the win here. I'm not going to focus uh, on something I have to persevere. I'm not going to get caught up in overcoming congestion. I'm going to focus on clear, unrestricted path forward.
Mhm.
And it gone. Like it literally, like we're that powerful that we can put ourselves that sideways, and we can also put ourselves that clear.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
I mean, that's a whole world that just seems like it's very, very untapped. I mean,
Oh
if
my gosh, yeah,
it actually works, and I mean, I'm experiencing, starting to kind of see
yeah.
how kind of that works a little bit. I mean, the whole medical field seems to be very,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a pill popping.
Yeah, it's money making machine.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting if more people
Yeah,
adopted.
and they're starting to. Like that's one of the things I'm excited about universal healthcare when it's not cost effective, when it actually is at a cost to the people that are in charge of it, meaning that it costs the government money. Like the messages are going to be different because right now the messages are lobbied. They're like you look at like the American Cancer Society, and they a lot of the diets that they suggest are ones that actually encourage cancer to grow. It's like literally, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's all lobbied. It's like when the beef industry gets involved in the American Cancer Society and funding it, like what do we think's going to happen?
Exactly. I think we're the only country, or one of the only countries in the world, that allows advertising for drugs.
Yeah, isn't that so crazy? And even when we see this list of side effects going down the screen, we're still like, maybe I need that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe I have heart failure. I don't know. I should go talk to them. It's stupid.
so so this is it really is, it's an opening of receptors. It's one of the things that recently I found myself kind of picking up on resistance, right? And it was in the format of people that weren't that were upset with me about something. Like they didn't want, like they wanted my attention, I was putting it somewhere else. I didn't want to continue working with them. I was going to work with different things or doing my own thing. And so I just set this intentional it was something I said to myself, but it was also something energetically I aligned with, was that I opened my receptors to positive support, and I no longer accept negativity being directed towards me. And it was like I just felt a wall go up, and it was like, oh, like I don't have the receptors set on that frequency. Whereas
Mhm.
before, growing up, I was conditioned and did very well at, who's pushing back on me, who is it that isn't supporting me, and my receptors would scan my field, pick up on it, and go like, oh, they're stopping me, they're against me. And like, how do you be successful when you're focusing on all the people that don't want you to be successful?
Right.
And it's just like the more successful you are, the more those people are there, and just as available is I'm the more people. Also, the more successful you are, the more people show up that want you to be successful.
Yeah.
And so, what are we going to tap our receptors into, because they're both available? And so I just started this mantra of that I open up my awareness to the places support shows up for me, and I no longer accept negative energy being directed towards me. And it's so like I can just feel my alignment go like this, and it was an old pattern that because I was frustrated, feeling like it's not fair for you to not to be angry at me, or like it doesn't matter. It's just, am I going to be open to receiving it or not?
Mhm.
So this brings up, have you ever seen Bo Eason? Do you know who he is? He played in the NFL, and he actually became an actor, and like he had a one-man show on Broadway for a while, and he he coaches and teaches speaking now. And he has this speech that he does, this presentation he does about playing in the NFL and Jerry Rice. And he talks about that when he got to play with Jerry Rice, uh, he said Jerry Rice was a veteran, right? And so there's all these freshmen or all these, rookies coming out, and they would go out and, basically we were running passes. So we'd just go out, run a pattern, receive the pass, and everybody would run out, go through the motion, catch the ball. But every time it was Jerry Rice's turn, he would sprint full speed, make the hardest cut he could, catch the ball, and then just sprint to the end zone full out. And then he'd jog back to the line and get in line again. And everybody else was just going through, catching the ball and stopping. And so he said he went up to Jerry and he's like, so what's the deal with this? Like, you're a veteran. Like, why are you working 10 times harder than the rookies? Like, what are you trying to prove? And he's like, every time these hands touch the ball, they go for the end zone. Like, that's my mindset. And anything less than that is not what I'm interested in. And it creates such an interesting perspective of what are our end zones. What is the scoring, and I think that maybe you can relate to this in volleyball terms of what was your specialty, or what is your specialty in volleyball? What is it that you felt like was your big strength?
In high school, I was a setter and an outside hitter. In college, I was a defensive specialist.
Mm-hmm.
I would say passing is probably what I've done the best.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, and so when you think about that, like when you were in those situations to, whether it was high school and you were the outside hitter or the setter or the defensive specialist or making that perfect pass, that perfect setup, was there any part of you that was thinking about or focusing on anything other than getting the ball exactly, like just that precision of what, like for you, that perfect pass was the touchdown?
Perfect pass was the touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we do in life though is we get caught up in the things that aren't the touchdown. We get focused on the lateral movement, and quite often we even get afraid to put the ball in the end zone.
Mm.
It's so interesting. Like I have this client that I was thinking of where this theory kind of really got developed, and he incredibly successful speaker and podcast, and the person that he chose to be his podcast partner, like their podcast is like growing so fast, like exponentially. They're like hitting these charts now, and they're like really showing up. And he's in a men's group with his partner, and the partner goes, like the business partner goes, I just feel like I'm trying to find something to engage with that really lights me up, and I'm just trying to figure out what that is in life. And and my client's like listening to him. He's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like I've been I've been taking him on this trip where it's like everything that I do, he's kind of meandering sideways a little bit, and like we're killing it. We're hitting the end zone week after week, and he's trying to find something else to engage in." And I'm like, he's afraid of the end zone, like, and so when we engage either with partnerships or ourselves, and we're not looking for the end zone, but the end zone's actually like, we say we're working towards it, but it scares us so much that we don't go towards it, that we start looking for, like, he's having this massive success and he's like, I'm looking for something to put my energy into, because it feels so uncomfortable to him to have that success. And so it's a really interesting self-sabotage technique.
Why is that though? Like what about success is scary? Because
Yeah,
I feel the same way about a lot of things, but I don't get it. Why would you not want that?
yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the individual. Sometimes it's the notoriety. Sometimes it's I don't feel like I'm worthy. Sometimes, like there could be a lot of things. And so I think for you, there's a lot of self-concept wrapped up in it. And it's really interesting. Like it's where your comfort zone is, right? And you talked about this when you talked about growing up playing with adults, right?
Mm.
Your comfort zone that you developed was that through that created a lot of gatekeepers, meaning that like your uncle who's the superstar, your dad who's bigger than life, right? That these people that were around you that were supporting you to tuck underneath them. And it never really happened where they're like, okay, you've reached a point where we're going to get out of the way now. You're the superstar now.
Mm.
That torch was never passed to you. And so what became your mentors, your saviors, also eventually became your gatekeepers. And so they didn't invite you to bypass them. And so it became a very comfortable thing of like, here's where I am. Like my specialist, I'm the pass guy. I'm the guy that set them up to shine.
Mm.
And so then we see that in like, I'm the marketing guy. I'm the one that sets them up to shine. And it becomes a really interesting comfort zone for you of where the reward base is.
Mm.
And so it's the field goals. And so this is interesting, right? There's a lot of coaches that drive down the field and they can move like basically to the other team's 35-yard line really well. And once they get inside that field goal range, all of a sudden something happens. They start shifting their thinking. They start going like, oh, we can't get pushed back, so we can't run that play because we might get pushed out of field goal range. And they start getting super conservative. And then like 7 field goals, you got 0 touchdowns and 7 field goals. That means you made it into that range 7 times at least, and you never got it in the end zone. And we do that, right? We're like, okay, well, I'm in field goal range now. I'm gonna slow down, and because it's comfortable, like so that pass then becomes the field goal instead of the touchdown. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. That really has been a pattern
Mm-hmm.
my whole life, and kind of that torch passing.
Mm-hmm.
thing I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're never, yeah, I mean, I don't know what that would look like exactly. But yeah, it's not like I ever felt anyone pass anything. It was,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
it's your turn kind of. I've never, even metaphorically, I don't feel like
Yeah.
that's happened in some way.
Yeah. They weren't ready to retire. They didn't want to see themselves as past their prime.
Right,
And so they kept keeping themselves in front of you in order to maintain that internal sense of self. And it didn't occur to them that they were holding you back.
right.
And it didn't necessarily have to happen that way, but it sure makes sense that it did.
Yeah,
Right. And again, it's like so much of the feedback you got, the positive feedback, was doing things that made them happy. Um, and so to where all this positivity's come from, to do something that makes them unhappy, even though they're happy for you. Well, it's like, like you see the son and the dad that play basketball one-on-one all the time. And at some point the son starts beating the dad, and the dad's excited about it, but pissed about it at the same time. It's like, it's that same piece of like, I can remember that even playing horse with my father. He would just start doing like these weird trick shots that he'd done since he was a kid. And I'm like, well, can't we just play like basketball? Why do you have to like find some weird angle to beat me instead of like letting us have like an actual skill competition, not a trick shot?
right.
Like he would just find a way to come out on top, and I would feel myself disengaged, lose my focus because I'd get frustrated. It's the gatekeeper. It's like, you were my mentor and now you're my gatekeeper. And I need to figure out how to get past you in order to really feel my power and thrive.
Yeah. I mean, this is not. I don't wish this at all, but it's
Mhm.
crossed my mind before. Um, this sounds really bad. Like, it's not meant to sound really to be bad
No,
or anything.
no, I mean, just I think the important part about these sessions is it's like a place to just let whatever shows up show up. Not
There's been times, and this makes more sense now. But there's times where I've thought, if my dad were to die,
yeah,
I wonder if that would release something. I've literally had thoughts like that
yeah,
before.
and
I
it
don't want
does.
to die or anything like that. I feel like the fact that he exists still,
Hmm.
it kind of fits into what you're saying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, even though
precisely
I
does.
see him probably once a month or something, and
Hmm.
we text or whatever,
Yeah.
but I'm not around him that much.
Hmm.
But there's still like this long distance
Gatekeeper.
leash he's got on me or
Yeah,
something in a weird way.
yeah.
And I don't know, there's been days where I'm just like, if he was dead, I wonder if I'd feel the same way, which
Yeah,
sounds terrible. But it's
no,
just,
absolutely. And there's a lot of people that don't get released from that gatekeeper energy until that happens. Like I've seen so many people, like their parents pass and they're in this devastated state, but they're also like, my God, I feel so powerful all of a sudden. I feel like I can do all the things that I didn't think I could do before.
mm,
And it's a very real thing. And we don't have to wait for that to happen. There can be a real choice in it. And when we, like, the interesting thing about aligned living is that when we're living internal, like that outer influence really minimizes. Like we can feel that it's still there. There's an old pattern, an old program with it. We can feel like where it operates out there. But when we're in here, we don't have to follow it. When we're out there, we absolutely had to. Like there wasn't a way for us to break free.
mm,
But when we start to go like, yeah, I'm just choosing not to let dad be my gatekeeper anymore. And I don't need to be mad at him. I don't need to make him the villain in order to get past him. I just need to not engage with that part of our relationship anymore and really feel, what is my end zone? Where do I want to put the ball? What do I want to create? And start to get excited about that because it's not relevant to dad. And I wish dad had the capacity to ask me to bypass him, to ask me to move on from that mentor relationship into being my, an equal, seeing me as that adult that brings the same thing to the game. And I've been waiting for that so I can feel that in me, but it's not going to happen from that. So I need to give it to myself.
mm,
And that is available when we're internal rather than external.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to work on that because I think that it's him, and there's probably a handful of other people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, my father-in-law
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
falls into that.
Like when we look at your life, right, it all matches up, and it always does. Like everything always makes sense. Like look at all the gatekeepers that are around you. Like even your brother-in-law, who's like, it's like he's gatekeeping from behind you almost. It's like because he feels like, it's funny when I look at it energetically, like they're feeling more and more over here, but it used to be like the father-in-law was in front of you, and the brother-in-law is almost like he's behind you, but he keeps trying to get in front of you. It's like just back off me.
Right.
And it's all happening energetically. And so if you're internal, then they're just running around doing they're only affecting themselves. And so what used to be debilitating becomes slightly irrelevant.
Yeah.
And it's kind of exciting.
It does feel that way. I mean, I guess part of this separation for the past couple months here, it does feel a little bit more like they're doing their thing over here, and I'm kind of attached, but I'm doing my thing over here, kind of. And
yeah,
I mean, I guess it's both physical and mental. I mean, physically, I was literally under them over at the office. Like there was an area for marketing, and they always, I mean, they're kind of known for being very detached. Like we're the leadership, and our doors are always closed. And there's I think they do it subconsciously, but there's a very real separation between them and everyone else. And it's kind of a known frustration that people have. So there's
it's a huge burden to them. I mean, that's like the part they don't realize by creating that separation, by creating that, this is, and it's funny, it's like, this is on our shoulders kind of an energy. Other people don't get it. I need to figure out how to keep everybody happy. And so they're just confused about where their energy needs to go out of fear. And that fear creates a feeling of it's all on them. And then they gatekeeper everybody else because they're afraid of what would happen if they let other people start to lead, that it would prove them incompetent, that would prove them, that they aren't doing what they are hoping they're doing and afraid they're not doing.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that really rings true, actually.
That's awesome. So I wanted to share this. Actually, it's funny that we're talking about this. This was from the presentation of that class I taught last night. I'm going to share this little image real quick. And so this is interesting. This is 3 pieces that are true prior to aligned living. And it is one of the things that aligned living really, really shifts for people. And so the first one is we're always being massively influenced by our surroundings and particularly other people. And that's that piece of when we're external, we're tapped into, corded with them. Whoever's trying to be the most stabilized is destabilizing everybody else. And we end up in training with stuff that we really don't believe in. And for you, you always end up in no man's land because none of it feels good. And so you're stuck navigating all of that. But you also know your truth is more important, but you hadn't been able to get in touch with it because you'd been so inundated with everybody else's. And so the second one is the choices we make are often more about what others want for or from us, rather than what we want for ourselves, and we usually don't even know it. And so that's that influence piece of the gatekeepers, or even the mentors, and the mentors that become gatekeepers. So it's dad, uncle, father-in-law, all these things that you're starting to break free from now and really feeling your own truth in. And all of a sudden now you're starting to pursue things that get you excited, because before you had to prioritize everybody else's because that's what was running through your field. And this one I think is really interesting is number 3 is most people focus more on what they perceive as wrong and try to solve the problem rather than focusing on what they want and creating it. Most of our problem solving is about trying to alleviate discomfort. And so this is the opposite of looking for the end zone, right? When it's like, how do we maintain the field goal, basically? And so when we start to create these shifts where we're living internally, we start to get excited about what it is that we want. And we stop focusing on the problems and we start focusing on what is it we really want to create. And so these 3 pieces that, it's funny. One of the women that was in in that group, she was saying that she'd been doing the meditation every day for several months now, 3 or 4 months. And she said it was really interesting to her that she was finding herself breaking free from all the stuff that she was doing, because she realized that it wasn't her passion she was chasing. It was what she thought other people wanted from her. And she was working just fine, starting to create stuff that she was interested in, that was really her authentic expression of self. And she's like, I was wondering how I was doing that and why that was different. She had this kind of epiphany. She's like, it is this work that I'm doing. It is this alignment, this breaking me free from that outer influence so I can feel what I want. And the gatekeepers are dissolving. Mm. And so I think that is starting to happen for you, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like all these things you're talking about, point number 3 in that presentation, I've got a little story I'll share with you quick.
Sure.
I feel like goes along with that. And it's something I've understood, like intellectually, I guess, for a while. Mm-hmm. Applying it, I guess, is easier said than done. But I was in Lake Tahoe about 5 years ago with my brother-in-law. We were mountain biking. Mm-hmm. And he's crazy. I mean, he's like dirt bike guy. He gets on a mountain bike and he thinks he's on a dirt bike. And he's jumping on this and that and going all over the place. We were going down this really steep, long trail. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of sand and loose dirt and ruts and all kinds of stuff. And he was just flying down there. And I wasn't flying down. Like I don't mind the grueling uphill. Like right. I can't thrive on that for some reason. Maybe that's some psychological thing.
Yeah, also. I love the resistance. I can dig into it and just persevere.
There actually may be something there now that I'm thinking about it. Because I do like going downhill. Like I do want to go downhill, but I have like this story that, well, I'm not the best at it, so I'll just enjoy going uphill. But that's kind of a second side note. So he's flying down the hill, and I'm not. I mean, I'm going fast enough, but I'm. Right. I'm just holding on to the handlebars as hard as I can, and
staying within your comfort zone, or just outside of it.
Yeah, I'm going down. And I could see him periodically kind of looking back at me.
Right.
And at one point, I just crashed.
Oh wow!
Sand or rocks. I don't know what I hit something and just crashed. I got some scrapes and stuff, but I was fine. And he pedaled back up the hill because he kind of noticed me crashing.
Yeah.
And he comes up and he helps me up, and I was like, man, I don't know why I just crashed. I hit something or whatever, and he kind of laughed because this is what he's been doing his whole life, is this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he wasn't trying to teach a lesson necessarily. He just what he told me is, he asked me a question. He said, "Do you know why you just crashed?" And I said, I don't know. I hit something.
Yeah.
Said, yeah. But the reason you crashed is because you're staring at the ground.
Yeah.
Which I was. I mean, I was just
right
down the hill. And he said, when you're on a bike like that, you can't be staring straight down. You can't look at every hole and every piece of sand and every rock.
Yeah.
Because you'll hit every single one of them if that's all you're focused on.
Yep.
He said, when I'm going down a hill, I'm looking, 20 yards, 100 yards in front of me.
Right.
And all the little stuff, all the little ruts and rocks and stuff, the subconscious just sort of, absorbs all of that.
And I trust that I'll navigate through it.
Right. And so I just sort of zoom by that stuff.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I don't think I've actually told him this, but it really hit me hard. Like, I don't think he was trying to be so profound about it, but
right.
I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Like how often, and your point number 3 there makes me think of that.
Right.
We're focusing on the problems. We're looking at the ruts and the rocks and stuff straight down instead of, what do I want? Well, I want to go faster and I want to catch up to him. That's what I want.
Yeah.
But I'm focused.
I want to do it safely, zipping through everything.
Yeah, I want to have fun like that and just go down the hill. But I don't, because I'm staring at the ground, worried I'm going to hit every single little rock on the way down. Yeah. But yeah, I do that. I mean, I do think I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to solve problems as opposed to what is it that I want, and then just doing it.
Yeah, and that's really it. If you're not sure about what you want, or it doesn't feel comfortable for you, so you may say, this is my goal, but that goal, reaching that goal, feels super uncomfortable. Yet solving all the problems feels like your wheelhouse. That's where all your energy is going to go, and you're just going to keep solving problems. and it's going to be really hard to get the end zone, to get that win, because where your win is in your mind is solving these problems. And so if your win is the pass, you're not going to have too many spikes or kills. It's like, because that's not your win.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, is it a matter of, how do you find what it is that your end zone is?
Yeah, well, I think part of it's choosing it, and it becomes self-apparent when we are in internal, because all of your end zones became apparent to you before because you were external. What did dad want from me? What did my uncle want from me? What does my father-in-law want from me? What does my brother-in-law want from me? What does my wife want from me? What does my kids want from me? And so when we're asking everybody else what they want and making those our end zones, like, fulfillment gets really elusive because we're scoring for everybody else. And it doesn't mean, and what the truth is too, is that really what people most want from us is for us to feel really good and to show up in a way that feels contagious, that people love being around. And when we choose our own end zones, rather than trying to make people happy by choosing their end zones, nobody's happy. Even if like, oh, great, like, how much credit do you get? Like, great, good job, Russ. Thanks for doing that. We appreciate it. Like, okay, yeah, glad I could help you. It's like, there's no, it's just like, okay, check. As opposed to the passion that you're even starting to explore as you look at, the jump proof, as you look at the possibility of creating marketing with this production company, as you look at moving away and being less involved in the school. You're finding your end zone through feeling internally what lights you up. Yeah. And that hasn't been available because you were so busy feeling externally what other people want you to be, and mistaking that for what your end zone is, or what's really going to be the right action for you. And it's human, so there's no, it's just conditioning. And so we're reconditioning ourselves to find our own end zones. Like, look at your brother-in-law, like, his end zone is your father-in-law's end zone. Like, and that's why he's never feeling fulfilled. And you look at your other brother-in-law who's created his own end zone, and he's living a totally different emotional life.
Right. So I guess some people are some people just born to, Dan, my other brother-in-law, he's just always, I don't know him that well because he's been on the other, ever since I've been in the family, he's been living with me, so I don't see him that much. But there's some people that are just born to naturally just create their own path, I guess. And others.
I think there's a natural element of it, but there's also conditioning, right? And so, who are the mentors? Who were the people around him? What were the experiences that taught him what it felt like to succeed? And so maybe it wasn't. Is he the older brother? Yeah, he's the older one, right?
Older than Chad. There is one other brother.
Okay, yeah. And so whatever dynamics were created, sure, there's his own personality, but somehow he found a payoff in finding his own end zones. There was something that he did that fed him, and he was like, oh, so I don't want to eat from that trough. I want to eat from my trough. And for those of you, like, you were so heavily conditioned to eat from dad's trough, to eat from your uncle's trough. And so that became where you would go. And so how do you get the end zone there? Like, you get the perfect pass, you get the, you set other people up for success, to shine, to let them be the superstar. And that's what you were taught was your score, yet you were kicking field goal after field goal and being mildly fulfilled by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just thought about something else. Being Mormon, like I said, I had gone on a mission.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
19, and I was in Ecuador. Had a great mission. It was a fun experience and stuff. Mm-hmm. But as missionaries, you're there to help people, and you're there to teach people and stuff like that. And it's hard, I think, just as human beings, to avoid the numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's part of being a mission. It's not as much these days, but there was a time, especially when I was a missionary, where they wanted you maybe it was just to make sure you're doing something, but
Yeah.
it was kind of a numbers thing. Like,
How many converts have you created? Or how
yeah,
many?
it never really was about that,
Mhm.
but there was the competitive side also, where it's kind of, you want to teach as many people as you can. You end up loving them in the process, but there's
Yeah.
kind of this competitive side also. And I remember I was really good at just working hard and just kind of just going.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the way that missions are set up, you have districts, so you'll
Mhm.
have, I don't know, 4 missionaries, maybe 10 in a district, and then there's
Right.
zones.
Mhm.
There's missionaries that are over each to kind of manage people and stuff. And I remember my zone leader came up to me one day. This was probably halfway through my mission, and I was talking to a lot of people, and I was kind of approaching it at times as more like a competition and game.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was like, Russ, you're like an hormiga, which is an ant in Spanish.
Okay.
You're so good at just going and going and going and like getting, talking to so many people and stuff. And part of me felt really proud. It was kind of like, oh, I'm an hormiga, I'm an ant. Like I just work kind of behind the scenes. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. The
part of
worker.
me felt good when he said that.
Mhm.
But then the other part of me, and I've thought about that periodically over the
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
like several times a year, that him saying that pops back into my head. And there's part of me that doesn't like being an hormiga, an ant.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want to be just looked at as this drone ant that
Yeah.
just goes through life just
And
serving the
yeah.
queen. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but I've approached a lot of things that way, and that ties again back into all this stuff we're talking about. Like
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always kind of, everything seems to go back to the same thing
Of
about
course. Yeah. It's a life
serving
theme.
other people and
Yeah.
trying to please everyone else and not do my own thing. And
Yeah. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've gotten into my book at all, but there's a chapter there called From Knight to King, or a subsection of a chapter. And it's about that very piece of that when we've set ourselves up to be the knight, to be of service to the king, um, there's something really challenging in moving from knight to king,
Mhm.
because like it's shocking to the kings. Like, it's like you're interested in being a king. Like, no, you're my knight. Like, you serve me. You're my worker ant. And it's a short section, so if you haven't gotten into that yet, I think it'll really like resonate with you of like, oh yeah, I've a knight is of service to others,
Mhm.
and I don't get to get in touch with what I want for me because I'm so busy serving the kingdom. And it's a unfulfilling yet noble path, right?
Right.
Um,
What's interesting about you even saying that? I mean, this, not to get into religion or whatever, but I think one thing that's interesting about Mormonism,
mhm.
some people have a huge problem with it. But I think it's actually kind of an interesting, encouraging doctrine that we have. I wouldn't even call it a doctrine necessarily. It's more just kind of a belief that, there's God
Mhm.
and we're his literal spirit children, is what
Yeah,
we believe. And, we believe that, he wants us to be able to grow and develop, not just in this life, but
yeah,
after this life, to become like him
mhm.
in a way.
Yeah,
Which to some people they say, oh, it's just blasphemous. Like, yeah, how could you even begin to think that you can be like God or whatever? But at the same time, um, I want that for my son. Like, I
yeah,
want my son to be as good as he can possibly be.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, not to compare myself to God or anything, but it's if you actually believe that
Mhm.
you're a literal spirit
Yeah,
son.
there doesn't need to be separation, and that's what this is. It's all about coming home. It's about like, allowing that God light to shine through you.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just funny because on one hand you believe a certain thing, at
Hmm.
least intellectually, but then in practice you kind of don't apply it in a
Hmm.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
And that, to me, like, that's a big part of what I see aligned living is too, is that we're disengaging from that human trap. All the crabs in the bucket pulling each other back in, And
Mhm.
instead, we are going internal, engaging with our highest aspect of self, which is an ascended state. And when
Yeah.
we engage in that ascended state, our perspective changes. We become much more in touch with our God self, if you want to call it that, or God light, much more in touch with how that energy, how we can start to vibrate at that frequency, which is our ultimate goal. It's about coming home, about being in resonance with God.
Yeah.
And when we start to live from that place, all this human stuff, it feels so silly. It's funny, like it was so fun to teach that class last night, because one of the things I had everybody do was come up with something that they were struggling with. We went into the line living state, popped into it, and then I had them re-examine it from inside that. I think we did that when we first started working together. It was funny, this, like, hearing person after person in the class just go, it just seems so small. Like, it feels so distant. Like, it feels like it doesn't matter. I'm like, it doesn't. We get so engaged and caught up in this stuff. And when we go here, we're like, I'm just supposed to bring this beautiful light, and I'm just supposed to show up, and I'm
Yeah.
supposed to follow the things that excite me and let it be contagious with the people around me. And what a beautiful place to live from, which to me
Yeah.
is ascended.
Yep. Yeah. Like so much good information. I just need to I don't know, I guess I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, kind of like all this makes sense. Like, oh my gosh, like this connects to this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where do I start? Like, I'm
Yeah.
feeling kind of overwhelmed right now. Like, what do I do
Yeah.
with this? Like, it all makes sense and it feels good, but
Mm-hmm.
how do I apply it? Like, I've still got to
Yeah.
do this
Yeah.
today. And it's,
Absolutely. And that's the human brain, the prefrontal lobe, right? The problem solving, problem creating place of, like, okay, so if I need to get from here to there, I need to find the problems and that are in my way that are keeping me from getting from here to there. And
Mhm.
that's how our brain works in the human prefrontal lobe capacity is, like, just like if I'm going to get down this hill on this mountain bike, I need to find where the sand is. I need to find where the pits are. Or I need to see that straight line, see the path ahead and just go for it. And there's two very different ways of interacting with it, right? And so when we hold our alignment, when we stay internal, we're focusing on the prize, we're focusing on the end zone, on the spike, the kill, or whatever you want to see it, on our ascension, on our alignment with God, like however, whatever feels most in resonance. And when we do that, we become very solution oriented. We become very much about, this is the next right action. And the difference between what we feel like we need to do because it's uncomfortable and we need to fix something that we perceive as wrong versus the next right action are usually two very different things. Because one is a symptom, the discomfort, the problem. Those are the symptoms, and that next right action is the solution. And so when we start to engage with life from that place of not getting so caught up in all the little distractions that are not the end zone, uh, literally our internal sense of what the next right action is um, shifts. And so when we're in that state, when we're really moving, it's a flow state, right? And when we're in flow states, we don't necessarily process what it is we're doing. It's almost like a little bit of a black box feeling. It's like we have an experience and we interact with that experience. And so a lot of people that try to enter flow, and I'm sure you've had this in sports before, where you're just like, you lost track of
yeah.
time and space. You're just responding to what's happening. And so a lot of people work really hard to enter these flow states and try to trick themselves into just going into non-resistance. And I think this is a big challenge that people create for themselves, because we started out that way when we were little, right? We just ran around and did whatever crazy thing we wanted to do. And then we got feedback. Like, the feedback says, this isn't working. like sit down, be quiet, stop interrupting, why did you just say that? All of these different things. And it was because we were unfiltered. And so we're like, well, this doesn't work. And so we start shutting down, and every action then starts to run through our filter. We start to be intentional about how we're responding. And it creates a slowing down in this really trauma-based decision-making, like fear-based decision-making, because it was about what was wrong and we need to make it right.
Yeah.
And so when people start to enter flow by just starting to go, I'm just going to trust what's going to come through me, but they don't change their internal state, they just go into unconscious behavior.
Mhm.
And that doesn't work. And so the whole idea of aligned living is we go into an ascended state, and from that ascended state, we can trust ourselves to not have to monitor every little action that we take, but trust what's going to come through us. And so that's the difference, I think, in how to move forward with it, is being internal, connecting with that light, and trusting what comes through us, because now we're in this divine self. We are in this ascended state, and we don't need to run it through our human brain to go, oh, is anybody going to be upset about this? Am I interrupting? Am I like it's the next right action feels just in sync, and we don't need to struggle with it. If that makes sense too.
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
I know that there was a book I started, I never finished it, but there was a book I was reading one time. It was talking about, it was exploring how, like, if there's a flock of birds flying around, or fish or something, it was talking about how do they all know to go exactly at the same time?
Yeah.
It's really kind of amazing. Like, you see a school of a million fish, and exactly at the same time, all of them move the same. It's like, how in the world? And I've been thinking about that with people. And is there, in your experience, do you feel like there's some kind of connection between all of us, where we all kind of affected, like literally subconsciously energy? I don't know what it is. I don't even know how to explain it. But is there something, like, can we control others? Not like a mind control, but if I'm a certain way, will other people sort of fall into place if I could get into a really aligned state?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there literally an attraction or something?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's entrainment, right? And so do you remember that experiment? I think I talked about this. I'm almost positive I did, about that school in Barcelona, Spain, where they did the study of who's going to emerge as the leader. I'll share it again real quick.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
And so basically they took 30 graduate students, MBA students, and they put them in rooms together, broke them down into groups of like 5, and had them work on case studies. And they were observing to see what traits help us predict who's going to emerge as a leader. They hooked them all up to EEGs and EKGs, and they gave them these case studies and just let them go and observed. And they said every time in the first 20, 30 minutes, they could identify exactly who was going to be the leader. And what it wasn't the intelligence or the charisma or the dogmatic aspect, or it was whoever was stabilized the most internally. And what they found was that whoever was stabilized the most internally, everybody else just started looking to them for stability and for leadership. And so not only that, but once they started to realize who that was, even at an energetic level, their own system, like their heart rate, blood pressure, like all those autonomic functions started to line up in sync with the person that they were picking as the leader, because they were stabilizing themselves through somebody else.
It's interesting.
And so when we stop looking externally, like you've been trained to stabilize yourself through like, what do I need to do for these people around me, right? Versus how do I need to show up that's going to serve everybody? And so when we're asking people, they don't know how we're going to serve them best. They know what they want, right? And then it's at a very much a low level, because they're dealing with problems as well. But when we disengage from that and show up like, how do I best serve by being this greatest self? And we stabilize in that, and we start to vibrate at that frequency, it gives people the opportunity to entrain with us. And when they entrain with us, it invites them into a higher consciousness, into a higher frequency, and a more stabilized place within themselves. And something fundamentally different happens when people entrain with us from this place than when people entrain with somebody who's stuck in the problems. When people entrain with the people that are stuck in the problems, there was this really cool TEDx that you may have seen. It's super well known about power poses and what happens when people, like, if they stand with their arms crossed, or standing in the Wonder Woman pose with your hands at your hips, and that people really respond to you differently, and you start to physiologically shift, like you become much more empowered. And what they found is that it doesn't empower other people when you do that. In fact, it creates a polarity where when one person feels dominant, the other person starts to take on submissive ways of standing. They'll cross their arms, they'll lower their head. And so it's a dominant It's not asking people go into their greatness. It's asking people to bow down and follow my greatness. And so when we align from an internal place, though, something very different happens. It helps people replicate their field like ours, and then they start to feel their own empowerment. They start to feel their own individual energy. They start to feel alive and excited. And I'm sure you've felt that when we've sat down in sessions and we lock in at that place where there's this energy that's running, and there's a sense of self that happens, not a sense of me. You know, it's like, okay, how do none of the stuff we're talking about is how do you make me happy? Like you're feeling your own internal self. And if I were in that 3D world, that problem solving, problem creating world, it would be like, and I was exerting that sort of same energy into my field, it would be creating other people diminishing themselves to serve. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So do you have any idea of what's happening? Like, I mean, is there something being given off, I guess?
Yeah, it's our electromagnetic frequencies. And so it's our, like, you know, the toroidal field, remember talking about the toroidal field? So that is our electromagnetic field. And so it's created by our heart, it's created by our brain. It's like the bigger that gets and the more stabilized that gets, the more it influences other people. And, you know, there's just more and more studies that science is actually like saying, okay, there's something real going on here where there's information being passed and there's a real influence. And we know it ourselves when we walk into somebody who's super dominant and they're like, whatever, like it makes us feel different internally. If there's somebody that's super like, you know, lifting up and lifting everybody around them, it makes us feel that way. And so when we become that leader that turns everybody, you know, connects everybody's own batteries to themselves rather than our battery to them, and they just become automatons that are pleasing us, like it changes everything. And most of us have been conditioned to plug into other people's desires, particularly if we've had like strong, powerful role models, like a dad who's a coach and an uncle who's a coach. And like, they train us to how do I please them as opposed to how do I please myself.
Yeah.
And so this is a remarkable shifting point where when you're shifting, plugging into your own battery rather than somebody else's, is like, okay, what's charging this now, not what's going to charge them. Because that's never ultimately fulfilling. And it's a case of what saved us as a child kills us as an adult.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it feels so good to just be thinking about all this. Just feeling.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And so do you feel that shift internally in you? And that's what this is, because there's a part of you that's wanting to put some new responsibility on yourself. And that's why it's feeling overwhelming of like, how do I get from here to there? You know, where's the sand? Where are the potholes? As opposed to when I'm just here, it's not about the sands or the potholes. It's about me. Like, and this is what I love about aligned living is it's systematic, it's repeatable, and it's sustainable. Meaning that there's steps you can take to get here, you go here, and you start to operate from this place. And you're either here or you're not. And so if you're leaking, all of a sudden, like you go from being the magician to the meddler or being meddled with, and you get 100% different results. Out there, you're going to be focusing on how do I solve these problems. Here, it's how do I focus on this, or what's the solution? What's the next right action? And it's funny, I was talking about this too, that I was talking about this concept with a chiropractor client, and he's like, I'm really struggling with this. I said, well, look at it this way. Like if somebody comes to you and their hip is sore, do you work on their hip or do you work on their spine? He's like, well, I work on their spine, of course, because that's really what's creating the problem. Their hip's a symptom. I'm like, exactly. like that's it. We're focusing on our spine. When our spine's aligned, everything else aligns. And then it's simple because that next right action becomes much more obvious. And it doesn't mean we don't run into our own turbulence. It doesn't mean we don't have old stuff surface. It just means that we have the tools to right the ship when the ship gets capsized or starts to take on water or whatever, or starts to list to one way or the other.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. And I like the simplicity of it, I think, is the saving grace. And what I've found, you know, throughout all the work that I've done is there's so many complicated systems out there. And to me, like, if it's complicated, it's like, it's many steps removed from what's important. None of this needs to be complicated. Like the simpler it is, the more effective it is, because we're going to the source of things rather than trying to backtrack and navigate through all this stuff to get to what it is that we're really trying to create.
So when it comes to stuff like, I don't know, money, let's just say money.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me like it's not about money. It's about being in that aligned state.
Yeah.
And if you're actually there and living from within that,
Yeah.
it'll attract things, or you'll be more engaged. And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe money will come from that, maybe it won't. Like, there's some people in their aligned state, like, predestined to be a billionaire, and someone else's aligned state will be broke but aligned. Like, it, like, I still struggle.
Fulfillment is a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so for some people, like that financial wealth is a big part of their fulfillment. For other people, they have a story around it that somehow it blocks their fulfillment. And so there's two parts of this. One part is there's the external influence, right, that we're breaking free of when we go here. And the second part is the calls coming from inside the building. What is our hangups, right? And those become much easier to deal with once we disconnect from the external, because they're not stabilized by the external anymore. And so if we have some piece around, like, money needs to come from outside of me, it's not something I feel comfortable generating, then we need to work through that, so that, and it's a lot easier to work through from our aligned state, but we need to come to the conclusion that that's a false truth that we've been carrying. And as we do, all of a sudden it's like, well, you know what, I'm supposed to be super comfortable, and it is supposed to just generate through me and what I bring to the world. And that feels really, really good. It becomes an end zone that we're willing to seek out. But if it becomes like, oh, I don't know, like it's always come from working for others, it's always come from, whatever. And so, I don't know what that would feel like to be for me. Like and we get caught up in the congestion, okay, well, I'll kick another field goal and take that paycheck. And so the whole piece of predestined, there's predestined congestion, and how long we spend in that congestion is really up to us. And it gets really fast tracked by staying in our alignment, because it starts to feel silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yesterday I had my daughter finished school for this semester.
Nice.
A couple of days ago. And yesterday she wanted to go to Knott's Berry Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a pass there, and some friends we're going to be there. And so I told her I'd drop her off.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a pass also. I don't go that often, but I have a pass.
Right.
And I dropped her off, and I watched her walk away. And I was sitting there, and I thought, I really want to go on a ride right now.
That's awesome.
Part of me was going, well, you got to do, there's some work, you got to go do. But part of me was just saying, I really just want to go on a ride right now. And so I went and parked and went in. I went on a couple rides and, felt some adrenaline and left. And I don't know if that means anything, but I don't think I would have done that 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I would have dropped her off. Maybe I would have had a thought like, oh, that would be fun, but I have to go do this,
duty, as opposed to fulfillment. And
so I don't know if that's a sign that maybe I've progressed.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know. It was just kind of a little kind of dumb thing. I just went in there.
I think it feels like a big thing, because you were seeking what you wanted for yourself. You were gifting yourself a feeling of fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And that sparks everything else. And when we can keep that flame going, then everything else becomes grows from that. And so what are the things that gets that sparks that flame and then tends that flame and fuels that flame, and we put our energy into that. To me, that's huge. Like, you were seeking joy.
Mm-hmm.
And for you. Right. And there's a whole nother piece of if they found out I was on the roller coaster, my brother-in-law would think this, or my father-in-law would think that. like versus just like, this is for me. Like they're not my gatekeepers.
That did cross my mind for a second. Not
Yeah.
it would have like it consumed me
Yeah.
a couple of 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. Because
It
they
did
were,
cross my mind. I was like, well, geez, if they knew I was going on a ride right now, what would they be thinking? I guess I just didn't care as much
yeah.
as I
Yeah.
did before. It was just, I don't know, I'm going to go
Yeah.
on a ride.
Well, also, I think one of the big shifts can be seeing the value in it. Like, this lights my fire. Like, I don't want to spend all day here, but I want to spend some time here, and I'm here. So I'm going to play, because play gets me enthusiastic. And when I'm enthusiastic, I get better ideas. I'm more effective. I'm more creative. I'm more fulfilled,
Yeah.
and I'm more fun to be around. I'm changing the days of other people around me, by lifting them up because I feel good. Like that, like I'm contagious. And I think when we approach the world as I'm contagious, so what do I need to do to put myself in a place that contagious is what I want to pass on to people, not something else. And I think it's really interesting when you think of yourself as being contagious. That was exactly when they said you need to step out of the office because you're contagious. And now it's like, okay, I'm contagious, so I'm going to bring like this uplifting energy, and then people are going to want to be around me because I'm contagious.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. When I talked to the marketing director the other day, I have a feeling she maybe had some misconceptions or something.
Sure,
I
sure.
could tell she was a little, oh, I'm meeting with Russ. Like,
Yeah. So this is Ross.
but by the end of it, I mean, we were laughing and it was
Yeah.
great. And I know for a fact, because I talked to someone else after also, I was like,
Yeah.
Melissa, say anything about the meeting we had? And, oh, yeah, she loved meeting with you. And okay. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Like, if I can be contagious, I guess it can go both directions.
Yeah. And you are contagious. Like that's part of your, like you're a big energy. And you can be everything from a big black hole to a big, beautiful sun.
Mm,
Right. And they're all available. And so what do you choose? And the only way to get there is by fulfilling what's going on inside you, meeting those needs, going on that ride, like doing the projects that get you lit up. So that when you show up, like you want to be around you and everybody else wants to be around you too.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's that simple.
So really quick, I said sometimes when I feel like something's on the horizon, the
Yeah.
sabotage thing. The one thing that just for me, the feelings I get sometimes are so strong.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I was dead kind of
Yeah.
feelings. Like it's just, I mean, last night, well, I guess it was after I went on a couple of those rides.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did feel energized and I
Yep.
had some interesting ideas and I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, cool. Later that day, I felt just horrible because I feel like the sabotaging thing, it happens before and after. So either
Mm-hmm.
it's your body, mind, whatever, knows that something's going to happen that could be a
Mm-hmm.
good thing for you. And so it tries
Yeah.
to sabotage it. And then on
Yeah.
the other side of the mountain, after something good's happened, it tries to sabotage
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
to like not keep you at such a high plane of feeling good. It's like, okay, well, you experienced that. Well, you can't have too much of that. So let me try to destroy you right now so that
Yeah.
you don't continue
It's
on.
not safe. And so
Right.
looking back on your childhood, when was it not safe to get caught up in being excited about who you are? How did dad or uncle or coach or whoever or friends, family talk about, church, maybe about what can be perceived as arrogance or self grandeur?
Um, hmm. I mean, there were times, I mean, there was always an emphasis on, being humble and
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
and all that. I don't know. I can't think of a specific time necessarily. I mean, maybe there was when they.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, specific times often create traumas, but like repetitive, just this is how it is, creates even more rooted foundational core belief stuff that sometimes can be even harder to move than trauma. Because this doesn't feel trauma related. This feels like core belief related. Um, you know, and it's like, what is your role, Russ? Your role is to help me shine. And so don't be too bright.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's like, it's, man, and this is just is what it is that dad really struggled with passing the torch, like to let you surpass him. Um, you know, it's such an interesting thing. And it's interesting, you know, with you and your own son, like it feels like there's something very different for you. Like there's a knowing at some level of like, once I reached a certain point, dad wasn't comfortable with me going anymore. And I don't want to pass that on to my son. I want him
Yeah.
to just keep, like, I want you to see me in the rearview mirror and just rock it by me, because I don't want you to struggle the way I've struggled. Um, and it's also an opportunity where you get to launch too. Uh, and there doesn't need to be a gatekeeper. We can let ourselves shift, and we can let other people shift, and it doesn't need to be linked in together. It doesn't need to mean anything about us because of where somebody else is operating from.
Right. I mean, going back to volleyball, there's a very specific. I don't know why we remember specific things.
Sure.
But there was one time I was playing, just my dad and I were practicing, and and you're playing volleyball. I mean, you're always kind of just in between whatever you're doing. Maybe you hit the ball on the ground really hard and you just
Yeah.
spike it down. I mean, I'm just screwing around or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I don't remember the context, but it's very much like my dad to say something like this. I just hit the ball on the ground really hard,
Mm-hmm.
and he's pretty intense about things. And he comes over and he goes, "You're not ready to hit a ball that hard. Like you don't do that. Like you can't hit a ball that hard on an actual net. Like don't practice that right now." That moment was just
Yeah.
seared into my brain. Like
You're not ready.
honestly, I probably think about that.
Wow.
It's weird. I at least once a month, at least
Yeah.
that moment
Mm-hmm.
pops into my head for some reason.
Yeah. So you can heal it.
Yeah, like I'm not. I remember even at the time thinking, I'm just hitting the ball on the ground. I'm not even trying to like show you like, look how hard I can hit a ball over the net. I'm just hitting the ball on the ground. But he made that comment,
No.
and I've always kind of related it to, I'm just not good enough. I'm
Yeah.
just not. Oh, I guess I'm not ready to excel in this or this. Like, and then I've had doubts about a lot of things before, and I know I'm sure he wasn't. He has no recollection of that
No, no.
whatsoever. He had probably
Unconscious gatekeeper. Yeah.
he had no memory. He even at the time it probably meant nothing to him. It was just a passing comment, but it was just burned into my
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
Almost it's like a commandment or something. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
just not ready to do it. But there's other times where he'd be really excited if I did good in a tournament. And so there was always this weird,
Yeah.
not good enough, but he was really excited when we
Yeah.
win a tournament. But
You made him proud. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I was just, it was like being in the wind
Mm-hmm.
constantly. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm not good.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
I'm good.
and
Oh,
who's in charge? He's in charge.
right.
Yeah.
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 And that's how he was. His dad was like that. I mean, that was just how he was raised. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that was just he passed it on. That's how you be
Yeah.
a father, I guess.
Yeah, and he carries a very different energy than you. He's shut down his sensitivities. He's all edge, um, and the soft part, like he protected, and you weren't willing to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's served you in so many ways, but it's also come at a cost in so many ways. And so when we're internal, like that softness is safe. When we're out there, it's not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, these are profound things we're playing with here, man.
Yeah, they are. Would it help to talk to him about any of this? I mean, I've never talked to him about any of this since I've been doing any of this kind of work.
Yeah, not necessarily, because he wouldn't really get it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I want the best for you, Russ. Sorry if that, like, I don't know why that would affect you so much, but I'm sorry it did.
Hmm.
Um, like, why didn't you just like become hard like me, and then use that, the like his drive is about overcoming everything, being better than, and you have a very cooperative nature to you, and so they don't plug in.
Hmm.
You're thinking win-win, he's thinking win-lose,
Yeah.
and that's like, it doesn't translate well because it's not safe. If you're trying to play win-win with somebody who's thinking win-lose, like they're like, your win is my loss, you can't win.
Hmm.
And so literally you can't win with them,
Yeah.
but you can win by not playing the game. And when you're disengaged from that game, it's not a loss to him anymore.
Right.
And so like, this is really interesting that, um, I was just doing a testimonial with a client the other day, and he was talking about, he's like, these relationships that, like, he's talking about his older brother. He's like, we were able to talk about things that we just were never, I didn't think in this lifetime we'd be able to work through. And looking at it was really because he wasn't perceiving the way his brother made him uncomfortable as something he needed to fix. And so when that discomfort wasn't showing up, he was just seeing his brother doing his brother's things, and he was internal in his own space. And so he wasn't trying to stop or make his brother different or wrong or a problem. His brother was just being his brother.
Hmm.
And that freedom, that disconnection, that two objects moving freely without affecting each other, changed their relationship, and it took away the contention. And it's weird because I don't think he thinks of his brother as sensitive at all, but most densest people feel that contention. Like, I don't want you to be this way. Stop being this way around me. If we're just feeling that internally, there's some level of it. And so with your dad, it's like that, like, stop pushing me around. Stop trying to dominate me. And he's like, oh, game on, as opposed to just like, okay, like that stick now, the puppet master stick is not connected to me anymore. No matter how much you move it, it doesn't move me, and the game's over. And then it's safe to engage because he doesn't have to worry about losing anymore.
Hmm. In a lot of ways, he's changed as he's got older. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I think most people mellow out the older they
Sure,
get, but
sure.
sometimes it's kind of frustrating because I'll go to his house and he's so mellow and
Yeah.
these days, and I'm just thinking, do you have any idea what you used to be?
Yeah, like seeing him with your children, like, don't treat my children so different than you treated me.
Exactly. I've had those exact thoughts many times.
No, grandpa's an asshole. I know he's hugging you and saying sweet things to you, but you don't know. He's an asshole.
If I would have done what you just did when I was your age, I don't know.
That's awesome. So it's, we're coming up on the, final few minutes here, and I know this is our final session from that package. So I want to make sure that we're, um, really making sure that we're setting you up moving forward, and also, there are possibilities to work together continuing, which I'm happy to share with you as well. But also want to make sure that you're in a place where those next steps feel really solid for you. Whatever you choose. And so, how has the idea of making the aligned living practice, like the shutting down, opening internally, how has that been, for you? Like, you're very internal now, and how much is that as we're sitting down together versus out in the world, and, how are you finding yourself that ability to navigate that and stay internal versus taking that bait and engaging with?
Yeah, I mean it's a lifetime of changing how I am,
Yeah.
but it's a great process to go through. I mean, I can tell there's been a change.
Yeah, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, I mean, I saw on the meeting invite today it was meeting 7 of 7. I was like, ah, crap.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, you do have a gift. I don't know what it is, but you get me
Well, thanks.
better than I think anyone I have ever talked to. Like,
Wow.
you talk to a lot of people, and you've got a ton of insight. But I think it's um, what's the word I'm thinking of? The empathetic side, like
Right.
understanding that personality type
Mm-hmm.
that I've never had anyone around me understand before.
Yeah.
My
Yeah. We're
wife's
so
not that way.
boring people.
Dad's not that way. My uncle's not that way. I've had never had coaches that way or
Yeah.
teachers. Like no one, like you actually get the stuff I'm saying and you
Yeah.
things to say along with it, which no one's ever done before. So
Beautiful.
that's been huge. So I don't know what it looks like moving forward or what options there are, but yeah, I'd like to at least explore what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that. That it's been really so fun connecting with you. It feels really good, and it is. It's so fun for me to be able to offer what I most wanted to show up in my world too. That I floundered in that sensitivity for years and years, and it ended up for me where I just popped into the state and I was here, which was great. But that mentor aspect of it was something that I know I just craved throughout my life, and it ended up showing up in as an energetic mentor, I guess, and that just connection with that information. But to be able to offer that and provide it is a real gift for me. It's what lights my fire. It's my um, what keeps me alive and focused and full. So thank you for that too.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, so the programs I have, and this is interesting. I have a group program it's a 10-week program, and I limit it to 8 people. And so a lot of the people that will be in it will be people that are either new to aligned living or just starting. But a lot of the stuff that we did, like we did the energetic work, but we did a lot more of the sorting and the understanding of being an empath and all of that. And so I would say the first class or two would feel like stuff we've covered, and then we'd start getting into new energetics.
Mhm.
And there's time for for the one-on-one type stuff embedded in the group, because as we work through each person's stuff, it's always connected with the group, and there's always this really interesting synchronicity. And so I have a group starting. It's going to be on Wednesday nights. Starts on January 15th, I think, if that's the Wednesday. Um, and it'll go for 10 weeks. There's 1 week in February where we're doing a Tuesday class instead of Wednesday. Just lined up with had a conflict, and so that option is it's 1997 for the whole 10 weeks.
Mhm.
And then I have a video course on aligned living that I give as a bonus for that too. And then the one-to-one coaching, I've gone down to where I'm only working with just a handful of people at a time. And so it's a pretty premium price, but it creates big results. And so that one's I do kind of a 2-month minimum where it's 6,400 for a 2-month package. And then if people want to continue, it's kind of like a rental where you put down first and last month and then give 30 days notice. And so if I feel like we've completed, whoever I'm working with, I would give a 30 days notice, or if the person's feeling like they're complete, they would give a 30-day notice. And so it's kind of like rent's due on the first, and continue, but 2 months is the minimum. So it'd be 2 months up front, and then month to month after that, or just doing another 2 months to keep it going, so to speak. And so those are the packages that I have, and that comes with a free video class too, which normally I sell that for $497, and so I like to throw that in with clients to kind of give them more background and more of the basics that they can go back and watch and see how the pieces fit together.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either one of those feel uh, in alignment for you, or how that shows up, but I mean, it's been really awesome working together, and I can see the trajectory you're on. I'd love to continue to support you if it does feel in alignment for you.
Yeah. Well, let me think about it because I'd like to continue in some way because it just helps. I don't know.
Yeah,
Nice
yeah.
knowing there's someone that gets you somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that support is, it's funny. The answer is always the same. Like it comes back to like move into alignment, and the next right action starts to show up.
Mm.
And so, you know, with that being, the obvious truth, there's also the piece of like, there's a lot of stuff that wants to pull me out of alignment. There's a lot of bait. There's a lot of invitation to go sideways. And so by continuing to be engaged, it's a lot easier to not take the bait. It's a lot easier to sort through it and find the why that bait's there and release it and shift that perspective. Because, obviously in the last, throughout the last 7 sessions, like your perspective of self has shifted a ton. Like I can feel this sense of empowerment in you, in the sense of like, I don't think you ever realized how much you like yourself because you'd never had permission to like yourself. There's always something that you weren't meeting out there. And when you're in here, like, you know what, I love that I am a musician. I love that I'm an athlete. I love that, that I have all these different gifts that creates this variety of who I am. And I love that I haven't given in and become somebody else for somebody else, even though so much of my action has been trying to keep everybody else happy. And so that shift, that self-appreciation, it's huge. And so I'd love to support you however I can to keep that trajectory going.
Yeah. Sure. Awesome.
Very cool. So you want some time to think about it? We can touch base.
Yeah. Let's get through when do you need to know for?
Basically the 10-week class would fill up. I mean, that's how it is. I just put it out there last night to that group I was doing the class for, and I've one person that signed up so far, and it's 8 people that are, and so I'm gonna see how many people respond from that group last night, and then I'll be running a couple more of those classes. And so it's hard to say because it's first come, first serve. Then for the one-on-one option, that there's, again, depends on how many people are coming in. So that's another thing I floated out to that group last night is, inviting people to engage how they feel aligned to. And so it's hard to say because it's filled slots more than anything.
Okay. All right. Let me get through Christmas week here and see where things are going. I'll definitely be reaching out in some way.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I look forward to connecting again soon. So have an awesome Christmas and enjoy that and just playing with your alignment and playing with the next right action and playing with I'm contagious. What am I sharing? What are people catching from me? Is it a high vibe? Is it, what is it? Because it is the truth. You're a contagious guy. And so I think particularly with that natural focus of how am I affecting others, it'll really help you serve yourself. Like I gotta go to the Knott's Farm because I'm in a bad mood. I gotta go ride some roller coasters. For everybody else, for my family, I'm gonna go play.
So there's something to be said about that. I think we deny ourselves that a lot.
Yeah.
Even little things here and there, just something.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to make myself happy so that I'm my contagious energy. I'm doing it for you and for me. It's win-win. And that is your nature.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Cool. All right. Well, this has been so fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad we connected and I hope to continue to. So we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. Right.
Thanks, Russ. I'll drop this in the box too with other recordings.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.